I woke up this Saturday morning completely lacking energy despite an abysmally large amount of sleep as usual before logging into Steam, ready to jump in the deep end and die 42,514 times on Hollow Knight when I saw that Inside was on a 66% off sale. Too good to be true, it seemed a bit like an early Christmas present to be honest. So I thought, you know, I might be a bit late to the party, but sod it, when has that ever stopped me? Let's open this bad boy up and see what's inside. Taking me just under 4 hours, here's a quick summary as to how it was to play, while incidentally also a showcase of the Psyk channel's first ever live action cosplay. Considering how long it's taken me to play this game, I'd surprisingly managed to avoid many spoilers, and was thankfully going into it pretty blind. If you plan on playing it and want to avoid spoilers at all costs, don't watch my shitty video on it until afterwards. If you don't mind too much, I'll try to contain the spoilers in one section towards the end, because it's an experience that can benefit a lot from you going in without much prior knowledge on what to expect. So if you want to play it yourself, drop your cola bottle, drop your chicken Kiev, drop your trousers, hit the pause and subscribe buttons, boot up Steam, play Inside for 3 to 4 hours approximately, and come back. I'll wait. Still waiting. Excellent. One thing I will say I knew going into Inside was that the development studio behind it, Playdead, were also behind the title Limbo a decade ago. Fuck me, it's been a decade, I'm old and dying. And a fascinating point of discussion with games like these is what makes a game in the first place, and on the flip side, what constitutes more of an interactive experience, or what's often colloquially referred to as a walking simulator. What's the difference? The amount of control the player has? The capability to win or lose? Over time, we've seen the introduction of games that explore this flip side, which isn't necessarily a bad thing as long as it's the right decision for the given project. For example, Yume Nikki is a surreal indie pixel horror game where players sort of just explore a bizarre dream world without any real aim or direction at all. You can't lose, there isn't a goal or a challenge to overcome. You can gain different effects that help you reach new places, but the aim of the game is primarily just to sort of witness your surroundings. Yet it's now seen as a cornerstone title in the genre that's gone on to inspire dozens of other titles. On the other hand, The Crooked Man is similarly a small indie pixel horror in which the linear narrative, based around the development of its main character, is single-handedly reason enough to play, but the gameplay that comes with it falls short, as its puzzles lack creativity and it ends up feeling like you're just searching aimlessly for keys the majority of the game to progress. It begs the question as to whether or not the experience would be greater in a different medium, like a visual novel for instance. Games like Abzu, Journey, and Inside have begun to show that there's a ton of potential for video games to be more than just killing enemies, leveling up, and scoring points, but as interactive pieces of art. But with this lack of complex gameplay can come the difficulty for players to stay invested in a medium that's otherwise so engaging, which I was concerned with when first starting this game. But right off the bat, Inside completely destroyed this concern. Inside is very much a game, and is fun as hell at that. Gameplay involves 2D platforming and puzzle solving in a 3D environment where the controls are bare bones, to say the least, which might sound rudimentary at first, but Inside's puzzles are ingenious and gratifying and make you feel so clever. I was often smiling to myself when working through them. As well as this, despite the variety of objects or characters you interact with and the subtle pointers the game gives you to help nudge you in the right direction, none of it feels out of place in the foreboding, thick atmosphere of the game's world. Instead of breaking the immersion, the robust gameplay actually does the opposite by keeping you engaged and driven to progress. And speaking of immersion, wow. I was so immersed in this damn game. How immersed, you might ask? Imagine a giant vat of just pure mayonnaise, like really thick mayonnaise. Imagine being completely and utterly submerged in said vat. Like we're talking completely submerged, like all of your senses are nothing but mayonnaise. All that really goes through your head is mayonnaise. That is how it felt. Metaphorically. Right off the bat, you sort of just show up and there's bad guys with dogs and you avoid them without really knowing why, before all of a sudden you don't have a choice and you're running for your life. Within a matter of minutes, the game builds this immeasurable tension effortlessly, without any instruction, dialogue, or direction. This immersive tension is bolstered not just by premise, but also outstanding visual and sound design. Inside's visuals are fucking mint. Despite your control being confined to a 2D space, Inside's sparse color palette and high contrast, low-key lighting manages to depict its dreary, desaturated, dystopian setting so effectively in the background, with camera control that's so smooth you won't believe it's not butter. The world's vastly abandoned scenery is littered with forgotten remnants of past society, like deteriorated construction, old machinery, or even what's left of entire bases completely submerged in water. Its lifeless inhabitants are ironically animated so beautifully, much like the main character who manages to stand out but not obtrusively, which cements him as a symbol of hope or individuality in a world of darkness, conformity, and control. Alongside this, players will notice a complete absence of background music. While it's no secret just how far a great soundtrack can go in terms of bringing a game's world to life, Inside proves that in the right circumstances, a minimal approach to music works just as effectively. The majority of sound you'll hear when playing is diegetic, whether it be your character's soft footsteps and panicked breaths, rabid hounds chasing after you, or the whirring of old machinery. The scarcity of non-diegetic sound means that when it finally does kick in, it's so much more impactful, or hits different, as the kids might say nowadays. Coinciding with the story's pacing and tension, Inside's very understated yet pervading soundtrack builds more and more in its final stages to bring to life its eruptive ending. Similar to its predecessor, Inside's story leaves a lot to the imagination, and it plays without any dialogue whatsoever. As such, the story is told purely through you witnessing the striking images and scenes that you wander through. Yet, being so engrossed in the gameplay, often you'll miss things when playing that you'll pick up on in future playthroughs or content online. One minute you're being chased by dogs, the next you're using a strange mind control helmet to move these lifeless, sedate human beings to your will. Then you're underwater being chased by fucking Sadako from the ring. Then this happens. Then you start trying to blend in, pretending you are one of the lifeless guys. Then this happens. Despite none of it making much sense as it happens, it's so gripping because you desperately want it to. You desperately want there to come a point where it all comes together. No stone left unturned, no mayonnaise left untightened. Yet with the absolutely catastrophic climax of an ending, you're left not with an answer, but with even more questions. With plenty of analysis by players and even a secret ending that gives a bit more insight into everything at play, the scope can be narrowed down, but there isn't really one correct answer and likely never will be. But that's the beauty of it. Much like a piece of art in any medium, how you choose to interpret Inside and what you take away from playing is very much placed on you. For example, Inside confronted me with a lot to think about.
Thanks, Sam. See...
Wait, who are you?
I'm your logical side. Like, you know, your voice of reason.
You kind of just look like me with a green hat on.
Yeah, well, this show doesn't have a particularly high budget, mate.
Yeah, okay, fair. Why green anyway? It's not overly helpful if I want to film with like a green screen or something.
How often do using a green screen and voice of reason come together?
Yeah, okay, fair. As we can tell from the varied investigations of the game's fans, there's two possibilities. One, much like the device the boy uses to mind control these empty vessels throughout the game, the boy's actually being controlled by the big blob at the end in order to free itself. As the blob has lots of these devices implanted in itself, perhaps it was developed as some sort of hive mind to control all these people independently and in mass. Two, the boy's actually being controlled by a separate individual scientist who has the intent to destroy the main hive. As in the secret ending, the boy's shown to unplug a random cable in some underground bunker somewhere, and as soon as he does, he takes on a very similar pose to these vessels we were talking about before. In either of these options, the boy seems to take down the system from the inside. Or a third option...
Hey, I get it, because the name of the game is Inside.
Who the fuck are you?
Well, I'm you, but blue.
Alright then.
Alright then, in my sights then, none of you hoes will ever see my pen. See, I rhyme, sublime, all of my lifetime. I'm the one behind the bars, call it organized crime. I'm a spiritual, lyrical, miracle individual.
No. Stop now. No. Or the boy is in fact being controlled by a completely separate force. The players. Because as soon as we get him to unplug himself and he forms this lifeless pose, we lose control over him and the game ends. After all, we as players were inside the game.
and now we no longer are. Hey, thanks man, but I think you're missing something else. See, it's been 4 years since this game was released, and much like their earlier title Limbo, there's yet to be any confirmation of all of the theories that have been placed on this game. And considering it's been 4 years, there probably never will be. I think we can all agree that part of the beauty in art is the capability it has to influence individuals in such uniquely different, distinctly personal ways. There isn't necessarily a right answer, because the story inside is simply there to harbor epiphanies that players have in play. Inside to me represents a parallel world, in a world completely overshadowed by darkness, while a little insignificant void where, without any clear purpose or direction, not only survives, but changes the world. Hell, to even get to the secret ending, the player has to not only complete the game, but have painstakingly gained knowledge on the whereabouts of every deftly hidden collectible in the game, and deactivate each one. The boy pulls the plug, loses sentience, and in a final, understated, sequence that couldn't be any more different than the original ending of the game. But with so much more effort, dedication, and knowledge does the game allow us to divert from the path it had planned for us all along. It's not so much about the specificity of the story itself, but the message and how we themes of individualism and hope. The lesson that every single person on this planet is so different, yet all of us are worthy and capable in some way. The story of Inside isn't one that's set in stone, but one that's set inside the player. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks. Yeah, nah. I reckon it's about mayonnaise.
9.5 out of 10. Should have had more mayonnaise.